Welcome in, everyone, to a new edition of Parenting Playbook. I am your host, Susan Goodman. As promised, we're going to keep that ball rolling with back-to-school preparation ideas. Now, this is an idea that was brought up to me by a coworker that I hadn't thought about, and I'm really excited to talk about it. And joining me is attorney Stephanie Fitzgerald from Fitzgerald Family Law. We really appreciate you joining us. Divorced parents. 40 to 50% of the children in the United States of America have divorced parents, and that first day of school can cause a lot of conflict. Stephanie is here to talk to us about how to avoid some of that conflict. Stephanie, where should we start?
Well, Susan, thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
And I think it's a great topic. I think we should probably talk about planning.
Planning is always key. Preparation.
So I would say that think about potential issues that you may have. Think about pick-up, drop-off. Think about, because you're transitioning from potentially a summer schedule that might not line up exactly with your parenting or the school schedule. Mm-hmm. That might lend itself to some ambiguity. Mm-hmm. And just get ahead of the issue well in advance. Email, text the other parent, just checking in. If drop-off was 9 o'clock in the morning on a weekday, and now school starts at 7:45, just checking in about transitions to school in the morning. Are you all set to get the kids to school on your parenting days? And I would think some other ideas you really want to think about ahead of time. Align those household schedules. Sync your calendars. We all have Apple phones, Google calendars. You can do that now. I would think that would make all the difference for the kids. There are a lot of very good parenting apps too. There are a few of them out there. They're not overly expensive. They offer a lot of options. There's a shared calendar that you can put in children's activities, appointments, doctor's appointments, medical appointments, and they also have like a communication platform. So you can use one of those and have a shared calendar. You can use a Google Calendar, but you can definitely do that. I would also say check your parenting schedule, your written parenting schedule, if you have one. Some parents don't, but check it, because a lot of the answers might be there. So the first step I would say is anticipate your potential problems. Check your written documents, because it may already be addressed, and then you may not have a problem. Just read it. Because you might have already worked out the problem and just didn't even realize it. Correct, exactly. Because most of the time when we do our parenting plans, we anticipate writing for summer and for school. So a lot of times we've already addressed that in your parenting schedule. So check there first, because the answer might be there. And if you're worried and there is any ambiguity, get in front of it. Send the text, send the email, and just make sure everybody's on the same page. Just checking in, making sure we're all set for the school's transition schedule. And to further that, getting everyone on the same page. Privacy is important, and I understand that, but you do want to let the school and the teachers know the family situation, so that if any behavioral issues happen, or to make sure that emails are going to both parents and that type of thing. That's important, isn't it? I think so. I think it's important that the school knows what the children's situation is in general, not detail. You don't need to provide the specifics, intimate details. Yes. It's not necessary, but just the general situation, because you also do want to know that both parents are contacted by the school. They're both emergency contacts. They are both getting on. All the communication is going to both homes. And I guess I would preface that by, that's presuming both parents have shared legal custody. I mean, that's a presumption that I'm making here when I'm having this conversation, because that impacts communication with providers. Now, as we're getting ready for back to school, we always talk about preparation. One of the ideas that we were told that they were a child of divorce that helped their family was she had back to school supplies at both homes. So if she forgot something, or if she had a favorite pen, she had two of them. Simple little things like that can make a difference. If it's not cost prohibitive to have supplies and backups at both houses, is just, it's a great idea. It's like having, it's the difference between running the soccer cleats back and forth versus having a spare pair at the other home just in case it doesn't make it, or a pair of shin guards. I think that's a great idea if you can do that. I think the other issue that has come up is who buys the stuff.
That was exactly who buys the stuff, who pays for the extracurriculars, because boy, the beginning of the year is expensive with all the sports and the schools looking for donations. How do you work all that out?
So that's a great question. So the finances, look to your agreement first, because your agreement may address it.
Okay.
If we have shared parenting, we typically have shared parenting, sharing of expenses. That's,
okay.
Equal, relatively similar amounts of time in both houses. If that's the situation, more than likely the parents are splitting those expenses. Then it gets a little dicey with, sometimes there's a shopper and sometimes there's not. And that little detail should be worked out with the parents, because if you're not a shopper and you don't really mind the other parent taking the lead on that, you can just give them a reimbursement for that. And if you don't like that because you're like, well, somebody's spending my money on me, which I can understand, maybe you do something like, I do the back to school supplies for our daughter and you do the back to school supplies for our son, and then next year we'll flip it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so then you're not worried about, like, well, here's your bill and give me one half of it, because parents don't necessarily like to get that.
Communication is key. Someone mentioned to me, what is the most important when dealing with this whole first day of school situation is you need to take the focus off of yourselves, off of the divorce, put the focus back on the kids. What is going to be best for them? And I guess if the parents are having a hard time communicating, use the apps.
Susan, I think communication and putting the focus on the children doesn't just apply to the back to school time period. We hope that you do that all the time.
Very true.
But it's very hard, and we get that. It's a lot of work to co-parent with a divorced partner. It just is. There's a lot of there's a lot of history there. So it's very hard to do that. That sometimes the apps will help you, because it will allow you to have, just have a little more thoughtfulness in your communication. My advice to my clients about communication with the other parents: always polite, always businesslike, to the point. Just what is the issue? This is my suggestion. What do you think? If you get a response back, that might not be what you were expecting. Well, thank you for your email.
Very nice. Very polite.
I appreciate your point of view. I don't quite see it that way. Maybe we have to agree to disagree. Maybe this is a compromise.
And I would think what gets really difficult for the two parents is if you had, let's just say for argument's sake, the mother who was more involved with the kids, and now it's a joint custody situation, and the mother was used to making all of the decisions, making all the purchases. It's a totally different mindset now, because they're spending 50% of the time in your house and 50% of the time in the partner's house. What is the advice you would have for a mother in that particular situation?
Oh, that's a great question.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So I think it would depend on whether the partner, the other parent, felt comfortable with the lead, the parent taking the lead to continue in that role. Some parents are. They appreciate the fact that they both had different roles in their children's earlier years, and somebody's real good at this and somebody's really good at this, and that's okay, and we can keep that. So I think it would be respect in reaching out and saying, do you mind if I take the lead in the back to school clothes shopping? Is there a budget that we can agree on? And I'll make sure we stick to it.
So just make sure the partner's voice is heard, and then I think everything will go much smoother.
Correct. And that courtesy in reaching out ahead of time and not making the presumption goes a long way.
That's excellent advice.
And then if the partner says, no, I would prefer to do my own, I think you've really got to, this is one of those very difficult times, you've got to bite your lip and say, okay.
All right. I love that advice. Thank you so much, Attorney Fitzgerald, for joining us. I appreciate all the time you took. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And remember, Parenting Playbook. We drop a new episode every Tuesday. Please keep tuning in. Have a great day.
Thank you.